breaking news. Adam Schefter, fill us in.
All right, Laura, we have the biggest trade of the NFL offseason, arguably the biggest defensive trade in NFL history. The Cleveland Browns are sending defending Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams in return for two-time Pro Bowl edge Jared Verse, a first-round pick in 27, a second-round pick in 28, a third-round pick in 29. A 1, 2, 3, and Jared Verse. Myles Garrett gets a new home, and just like the Rams, made a big, bold move in 2021 when Los Angeles was hosting a Super Bowl and the Rams traded for Matthew Stafford. The Rams have done it again with Los Angeles getting ready to host another Super Bowl this upcoming season, trading for Myles Garrett, who they've been trying now to get for weeks and finally able to get the deal done today.
All right, Adam Schefter with us for the hour, and we are going to spend a lot of time on this, right, Adam? There's lots of different sides of this to unpack, and again, we'll do that. So there's a long list of accomplishments for Garrett since getting drafted first overall in 2017, and only Reggie White had more sacks through 9 career seasons. Garrett's 23 sacks in 2025 were the most in any season in NFL history, and he's been named the Defensive Player of the Year in 2 of the last 3 years. To help us unpack all of this, we have Mina Kimes, we have Marcus Spears, we have Peter Schrager. There's my camera. Okay, so you guys, Swag, you got the fists up. You're ready to go. We're going to talk a lot about the defensive side of this for the Rams, also what it means for the Browns. That's coming later on in the show. But first, I'll start with Mina. Just what does this mean, Mina, for this Rams D-line now?
What a nightmare for opposing off. Already one of the better pass rushes in football, and obviously you lose Verse, who's an ascendant young player. I'm excited to talk about what that means for Cleveland. But Myles Garrett joins a defensive line that is extremely strong on the interior. Kobe Turner, I feel like, is one of the best defensive tackles in football. People don't talk about. 5th, by the way, in pass rush win. Braden Fisk, Byron Young opposite him. This is a team that does not blitz very much, and with Myles Garrett, they can continue that. They do not have to. This is already one of, if not the best rosters in the entire NFL. And now with this trade, as well as the additions they made in the secondary, which was arguably the one weakness of the team last year, trading for Trent McDuffie and adding Jalen Watson, this is the best team in the NFL. I don't think that should be controversial at all. They are the prohibitive Super Bowl favorites, and they had a player in Myles Garrett who is not just the best defensive player in the league, might be the best player in the entire league.
Yeah, and Mina's right. This is a move that the Rams are putting their flag in the ground and saying, we are that team. And we know we were this close last year, and we got to that NFC Championship game, and we couldn't stop anyone. And this is what it's going to take. Now, if we unpack this goes all the way back to the Ty Simpson trade. And I've done, obviously, quite a bit of conversations with both sides here. At no point has Todd Monken or Mike Rutenberg or Andrew Berry made it clear this offseason that Myles Garrett was walking through that door. The breadcrumbs were there on that. You go to the Rams side of it, I can assure you, when the selection of Ty Simpson was made, there was a conversation with Matthew Stafford saying, don't worry, there is more to come. And whether that meant a huge offensive splash or the best defensive player in football, this was a deal with Stafford that you're going to get paid, you're going to get restructured, you're going to make sure you're going to make more money. But we're not leaving you out to dry here. We're not taking a rookie quarterback who is not going to play at all with nothing else. If you know Snead, if you know McVay, if you know Demoff, the way that organization works, they never sleep until they are at the point where they feel like they've done everything they possibly can to get their team over the hump. This trade has been in the works for weeks, and the Jared Verse part was the last little wrinkle. That's what they had to give up to make sure they could actually get Myles Garrett. But if you're the Rams, yeah, this is our message to the world. We're going for it with another home Super Bowl in our backyard.
I mean, both amazing points, and both of you brought it up about the Rams. This is peak Rams. It's not something we haven't seen before from the Los Angeles Rams, though. But I'm going to focus on Myles Garrett. Thank God we are about to see this dude in prime time a lot. I said this last year during the season. He would be in that conversation for the best defensive player ever if he played for a contender. People have no idea. People have no idea how good he is at football. They know the stats, and they know he went for the record and all of that. But now he's on a team where you're going to watch Myles Garrett like we do on this show, down in and down out, and you're going to realize beyond the sacks and the big plays how much he impacts a football game without making the play. That's what got me so excited about this trade. I said it last year. He's just been kind of withering away. 9 years in the NFL, and not one time have we ever thought Myles Garrett had an opportunity to go into the postseason with a chance to win a Super Bowl. Football fans, everybody that loves the National Football League, and that's a lot of people around the world, you are about to witness the Myles Garrett experience week in and week out, and it's going to be one of the best things that you've seen in this league for a long time. I'm so happy for him. Obviously, I'm happy for the Rams, and the Browns got their trades, and they got their picks, and they got a really good player in Jared Verse as well. But the fact that we are going to see Myles Garrett in the playoffs, and y'all know on this show how much we love football and how excited we get about the playoffs. Myles Garrett in the playoffs with the Los Angeles Rams with an offense that has a chance to score 40 every time they're out, and he's going to be able to pass rush for a majority of the game. That's what everybody should be excited about. Congrats, Myles. You are about to introduce yourself to a whole segment of people that might not even be football fans that are going to marvel at what this dude does on the football field.
Hey, Adam,
I'm super excited for him.
I know you're jumping in, Shefty, but Swagoo's mic is not used to Swagoo's excitement right now. His mic can't even handle how happy he is for Myles Garrett. Go ahead, Adam.
Everybody
tap on that thing.
Breaking up with emotion.
Well, I was going to say, Myles Garrett already is so happy that he's agreed to waive his no-trade clause, which he's the rare player to have a no-trade clause. It goes with him to Los Angeles and stays in his Rams contract. And you hear Big Swagoo talk about his excitement for Myles Garrett in LA. Let me tell you about the Rams' excitement, okay? They went back and looked at all the plays of his from last season, and he actually was better than they thought he was, if such a thing is even possible. 20 of his 23 sacks came from a four-man rush. They could not believe the pressure he was able to generate. He did it in a team where they weren't winning, where essentially the Browns rarely were playing with a lead. They think that they have the successor to Aaron Donald right now, that level of player. And it works out very well for Myles Garrett. Let's not forget, a year ago, he asked to be traded. Everybody thought he would be traded potentially. The Browns never wavered. They gave him a 4-year, $160 million contract extension instead. But those feelings never really went away. Myles Garrett didn't show up during the offseason. He never said hello face-to-face with the new Browns head coach, Todd Monken. Something was askew, and the Rams capitalized on that. And the Browns did too, because they weren't going to make a trade unless Jared Verse was included in the deal. And when the Rams agreed ultimately to include a player that they didn't want to part ways with, that's when the trade heated up. And now Myles Garrett gets to go to a situation the likes of which he's never been in before. They couldn't be more excited to have him.
Yeah, Mina mentioned earlier that Myles Garrett may not only just be the best defensive player in the league, he might be the best player in the NFL. I want to point this out because I think Super Bowl odds say it all. We already knew that the Rams were the Super Bowl favorites. They were hovering around plus 800 to plus 850. After this trade, DraftKings now adjusted the Rams odds to plus 600, 200-point swing. That's almost unheard of. Doesn't happen very often. Mina, when you think about the impact of what Myles Garrett brings to the table, the collective group on this Rams defense, plus the offense and the way it can complement what they'll do, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it needs to be emphasized. This was already a good pass rush, and obviously Jared Verse was a big part of that. But Garrett adds something different. I know I'm saying something obvious, and I don't even have to give you stats to illustrate how good Myles Garrett is at getting after the quarterback. He's first in, like, everything over the last few years. That's why he always is, you know, he's a defensive player, the no-brainer, not just the sacks, pressure rate, pass rush win, etc. But there is one thing I do want to mention in terms of him adding a different element to this Rams pass rush. Last year, Myles Garrett had the fastest get-off, meaning his speed off the ball, of any pass rusher in football, 0.7 seconds, which is insane, by the way, at his size. None of the Rams players ranked inside the top 70 in that metric. Jared Verse was just outside of it. So he's a good pass rusher, but in terms of blowing up plays before the quarterback has time to do literally anything, Myles Garrett is in a league of his own. And also, it is something that, as good as the Rams pass rush has been, it's been a missing component, Laura, that speed element that he brings to the defensive line.
It's a great point. Peter, when you think about the overall price tag, somebody's honking their horn. They said, honk if the Rams got Myles Garrett. Peter, the overall price tag, it's Jared Verse plus the 2027 first rounder. What's your assessment of that?
Yeah, and it's 2 more picks. So
Right.
3 different draft picks and Jared Verse, who, by the way, was their best pass rusher the last several seasons. It's interesting. Talking to Sean, he's learned a lot from the Jared Goff trade, and he doesn't love the fact the way he handled that Goff found out about that trade via social media and was almost like the last one to know and had to then deal with that and go through all of that. The Rams weren't going to let this thing happen until they spoke to Jared Verse, and they did so today. And they did so at about, an hour before the trade went down, but they didn't want to trade Jared Verse. They actually did get in touch with Verse. They got him there, and then it was like, okay, let the floodgates out. We're making this trade. It's okay. But this has been in the works, and at no point was Jared Verse tossed out as a piece of this. It was always going to be picks, but the Browns weren't going to do it without getting Verse to be a part of it. They eventually had to part with one of their favorite guys on the roster and a team leader in a lot of ways, even though as young as he is on that defense. If you remember Jared Verse going around Philly at Lincoln Financial, pumping his chest and talking smack before that playoff game, he's the emotional leader of that defense. But they did get in touch with Verse. They did speak with Verse. And Adam, as you can add color on this, this is a trade that's been in the works, but it really wasn't going to happen until they had to part with one of their favorite players on the roster.
You're right, Peter. They wanted to make sure they told Jared Verse, who was born in Dayton, Ohio, but had no idea today that trade would be coming and that he would be sent back to the place in which he was born. But ultimately, that's what happened. I think we look at the picks that the Browns are getting back. There are now 2 teams in the highly anticipated 2027 NFL draft that have multiple first-round draft picks. The New York Jets have 3 first-round picks next year. The Cleveland Browns have 2. And the Cleveland Browns have given themselves some added ammunition and flexibility to go out to get a quarterback if that's what they want to do in the 2027 draft. By virtue of this trade right here, the Browns now have the ammunition that they need to be able to maneuver around the draft board, not to mention the added draft capital in 28 and 29 that they've accumulated here. And they have spent the last couple of years stockpiling draft picks. They had extra picks courtesy of moving back from 2 to 5 from the Jacksonville trade. They have extra picks here courtesy of the trade from Myles Garrett. And at some point in time, there's going to be a huge influx of talent to Cleveland, and there's going to be an opportunity for this franchise to come away with the player it wants.
Shefty, I love that you brought that point up because sometimes you have to rip the Band-Aid off. You have to identify where you are, understand that with all of the excitement with Myles Garrett, that the Cleveland Browns' most important move is getting the quarterback position right, whether that's somebody there that plays themselves into that or whether that's a draft pick that they need to use. And also, people need to realize as well is that these draft picks at times turn into veterans like a Myles Garrett if you get down the road and realize you 1 or 2 players away after some rookies or some free agents show up for you well during the season. So I like what the Browns did here. Now they have to manage it the right way. We came out of the draft saying the Jets did a phenomenal job. The Jets went through this change. You have to rip the Band-Aid off. The worst place you can be as a football team is in the gray, just waffling. So this is a move for the Browns. Now they have the capital and the opportunity to change the face of their team potentially. I just hope they use it the right way.
Again, we'll dive into more on the Browns side of things later on in the show. Those quarterbacks in that 2027 class, Arch Manning, there's a few other big names. We'll talk about what that could look like. And we're so glad 100 days till the Seahawks and Pats face off in a Super Bowl rematch. And could New England have A.J. Brown on the roster come week 1? June 1st is a date we've been waiting on, and we'll see exactly if it can end up happening. And in fact, I'm being told we do have breaking news. So right now, we go right to Adam Schefter on A.J. Brown. Adam, what's the latest?
All right, Laura, the trade is in. It is official. A.J. Brown is being traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. It's going to be for a 2028 first-round pick. It's also going to be for a 2027 fifth-round pick. The Patriots have 2 fifth-round picks. It'll be for the better of those 2 particular picks at this point in time, but that trade is the second trade. Who would have thought that the A.J. Brown trade would be the minor of the two trades that came down today? But that is the situation. It is now official. A.J. Brown is reuniting with Mike Vrabel in New England. The two have worked together before. They are going to work together again now. That trade is just coming down as we speak. A.J. Brown to the New England Patriots.
Adam's trying to get that tweet out. I'm going to buy him just a second here. But, Adam, I do want to follow up. As you've said many times, we expected this to happen. What was the process like to get to this point in leading up to it actually happening here on June 1st, as you see all the information on the screen?
Well, my understanding is the two sides had not had any contact in recent weeks. There were conversations that occurred in March and April, and an understanding that they would pick this up again after June 1st. And that's exactly what they wound up doing today, exchanging phone calls and coming to the agreement that will send a 2028 one to the Philadelphia Eagles for A.J. Brown, a 2027 fifth-round pick back to the Eagles as well. So the Eagles get 2 first-round picks. Now, here's the other interesting twist to all this, of course. At one point in time, the Los Angeles Rams were sniffing around an A.J. Brown trade, and they decided ultimately that they would be better off spreading their resources elsewhere, trading for Trent McDuffie, and now trading for Myles Garrett.
All right, again, if you're just tuning in, Myles Garrett is now a Ram. The Browns got Jared Verse and some good picks, a 2027 first-round pick. And now it's official. A.J. Brown is a New England Patriot. We'll dive into the Eagles side of all of this, but congrats to the Pats. You got yourself a great wideout. Let's talk about A.J. Brown. Through his career and up until this point, Brown has been one of the most productive receivers in NFL history, including the playoffs. He's one of 7 players all time with at least 8,500 receiving yards and 60 touchdown catches in his first 7 seasons. The others, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison, Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson, and Tyreek Hill. Pretty great company to be in. Mina, what do you make of the idea of Brown in that Patriots offense now that we know it's official?
It's fairly exciting. Very good fit with the quarterback. Drake May is an aggressive thrower of the football, loves throwing it downfield. He's very accurate throwing it downfield. A.J. Brown is excellent, really at all 3 levels, but contested catch situations, red zone. You like the makeup of the receiver group now, which is really remade, right, with Romeo Doubs as a 2 and a mixture of Hollins, Douglas. We'll see what Kayshon Boutte's role is. And I'll add this, I think, so when we think about A.J. Brown and his skill set, the number one thing that comes to mind is his ability to beat man coverage. Statistically, been the best receiver in man coverage in football the last few years, and press. And while during the regular season, the Patriots receivers were very effective in that regard, I think in the postseason, you saw the group get a little exposed. Now, they're not the only problem. It was the offensive line. Drake May struggled as well. But something that caught my eye in the postseason, I looked this up, against press coverage, Patriots receivers only caught 23% of Drake May's throws. So I feel like A.J. Brown is a solution to a problem that did show up a little bit later in the year, and it's just a really great fit for this quarterback. And also, by the way, yes, they're not the Rams, but the Pats were in the Super Bowl last year, so it makes sense that they're trying to take advantage of the rookie quarterback's contract to win now.
Yeah, it's a couple of reasons I love this. One, it's another gift to Drake May, but it's also because Drake May has played well and proven as a young quarterback that he's on the ascension of being a really good quarterback in this league, and you supplement that by bringing in a really good wide receiver. The other thing about this is a personality fit as well, and I've been very tough on the Titans for letting Mike Vrabel and A.J. Brown go, and along with Derrick Henry. All 3 of those guys were in one place at one time. But to marry this again, I think the personality fit matters. When we were in New England and they were in the playoffs, you saw this team and how much they were galvanized and how much they rode for their head coach. And I think A.J. Brown, with his mentality, to me, it fits the way that Mike Vrabel is as a head coach. If A.J. Brown wants the football, they're going to find ways to get it to him. And I don't want to take Josh McDaniels out of this either, because every time Josh McDaniels has had a really good wide receiver, that wide receiver has put up enormous numbers. And I think A.J. Brown will be the next one in that line of guys that's been acquired by the New England Patriots that plays that position at a very high level and can absolutely get it done. So when you look at it in totality, I think it's more about the fit and the mentality of A.J. Brown and this Patriots culture that they're trying to build. As a football player, we know A.J. Brown is going to play well and play at a high level.
The trade itself is unique in that it's like the worst kept secret in the league, and it actually happened. These usually don't work this way. Like, it was the biggest topic at the combine. Everyone was like, A.J. Brown's going to the Patriots. Then in free agency, the Patriots aren't going to break the bank on anyone but Romeo Doubs. It's because they think A.J. Brown is coming. And then draft week, Adam Schefter comes out and is like, oh, that trade's coming. As all the Boston beat reporters are like chasing it, like, wait, it is happening now? So I find it fascinating that no other team swooped in. Nothing fell apart at the last second. This is one that was kind of in the drawer since the combine. And then it actually happens. And I guess we'll do the Eagles side of it. It kind of makes me sad, too, that, like, this is how it ends, right? Like, this was a great, great partnership, A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. And these guys were supposedly best friends from childhood. And, like, it actually is over. And I'm sad by that because I thought those two had this great future ahead of them. And after the Super Bowl championship and the amazing performance that A.J. Brown had in that season 2 years ago, I was really hopeful that those two can find a way to make it work. But it sounds like bigger things were at play, and A.J. Brown is now on to his third team, and he's back with Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, you heard Jalen Hurts, even before this breaking news actually broke on our show, saying no one will ever replace how special it was what they did together. And the Eagles know how important A.J. Brown has been to them. This new on NFL Live tweet. Thank you for everything, A.J. Special to see. He is now a Patriot. The Patriots, by the way, begin their season at the Seahawks home against the Steelers.
You might be onto something, and it might not be during the season, but they might have other things in their pocket, whether it be in the draft or if there's a disgruntled player elsewhere. Like, what's the windy fingers, this one? Like, you're onto something here. They're not just going to sit there.
I think those were the Schrager fingers.
Yeah, whatever it is. There's always another thing they can go to in the bag. That's how they operate.
All right, so remember, that was at the draft. Triggs, you were calling it then, right? You saw something coming.
That's what they do. They're not going to draft a first-round quarterback and look at Matthew Stafford and say, sorry, we're done. This is what you have. So the windy figures was just an assurance that this season is going to be a big one for the Rams. Super Bowl in L.A., primetime games, 7 of them, 2 of them on our network, weeks 2 and weeks 5. And Stafford is now 38 years old. They weren't just drafting Ty Simpson and saying, all right, we're done. Windy fingers or not, Myles Garrett is what the end result is, and it was 6 weeks later.
L.A. trying to win the Super Bowl at home for the second time after winning Super Bowl 56 at SoFi State.
The biggest trade this entire offseason.
Man, it's massive. It's been fun to follow today, and we'll see what else continues to happen. But it's interesting because when you think about what we're talking about here for the Browns versus a very important player for the Rams, right, Peter? When you think about what his contributions have been, how they valued him, his leadership. I mean, anytime I did a Rams game, we were always talking to Jared Verse before. The media would speak to him a lot. He's been important for them. Do you think that the Browns, though, in all of this, got enough in this trade?
There's a lot of people who think the Browns got the better of this trade. You know, you'd say a 30-year-old player who doesn't want to be there, who, yes, took the money last offseason, but also spent all of Super Bowl week in New Orleans doing a full media circuit saying how he wanted to be traded from Cleveland and just wanted to play for a winner. And in exchange, they get 3 draft picks and one of the best young defensive linemen in football who also has some bite to him. And, as Adam mentioned earlier, is an Ohio native. So I think the Browns, if you're looking to rebuild your team, you have maybe the most attractive asset in all of football, and you got 3 premium picks and a star player in return. Yeah, the Browns got younger, and the Browns got even more ammunition if they are going to make a big move for a quarterback in the draft, or if they're going to try to continue to build things up. It's easy to look at it and say, well, Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett, and we're happy and we think that's a slam dunk. But if you ask people around the league today, there are many people who say, I like the trade from the Browns side too.
Yeah. There was a y'all know that meme, like when it's quiet and the good play happened and the whole bar go crazy and beer flying all over the place.
Yeah, I like that one.
That was the Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, and Pittsburgh Steelers O-line room. And then when they realized that they had acquired Jared Goff, all of them said, oh, damn. We got another one. I mean, Jared Verse. Oh, damn, we got another one. Because I'm telling you right now, we all know that Myles Garrett is widely respected as the best defender in the NFL, the best defensive lineman, hands down. But Jared Verse ain't no show pony. Jared Verse a monster. And if you watch him play and the strength in which he play with, how he sets edges, the violence in which he gets to the quarterback and makes plays, this is not some throwaway, they just gave him a player. This is a player that's going to impact games for the Cleveland Browns as well. So as much as we wax poetic about what the Rams did and how good Myles Garrett is, I don't want Jared Verse to get lost in this sauce. I know the young man. I love him tremendously as a football player. I think he has the right makeup. And like you all have said, he's playing close to home. He doesn't need motivation to play football. He's a 100% football player and loves playing the game. So the Cleveland Browns got a high-level rush in and a guy that's going to impact that defense as well as they continue to build out this football team.
Jared Verse is a great player. I mean, Marcus hit it. His game is really oriented around power and violence, which is, he's different from Garrett. No one's like Myles Garrett, but he is still a ascending young pass rusher. He's also excellent against the run. In fact, since coming to the league, he's second only to Max Crosby in ESPN's run stop win rate metric. So he's a complete edge. And when you take a step back and look at the value of the trade and the picks, as Peter alluded to, I do think this was fair. You're comparing it to, if you're a Browns fan, the Micah Parsons trade, which was 2 firsts and Kenny Clark, and you might feel disappointed. But think about this. You got 1 first next year, which, as we've all discussed, is the year in which the Browns and everyone else wants a quarterback, and now they have more ammunition to do so. And by the way, their own pick might be a little bit more valuable without Myles Garrett, just throwing that out there. You have Jared Verse, who I believe is worth a first-round pick, even if it is a late first. That is still, again, he's got 2 years left on his deal plus the 5th-year option. So, yes, they didn't get another first, but Verse is worth it. And then, on top of that, the future second and the third, which, especially if Matthew Stafford retires between now and then, those picks look good. And if they're about middle of the pack, depending on which trade value chart or draft pick value chart you look at, that's kind of a late first. So all told, it's a pretty decent haul for Cleveland, especially considering the player himself wanted out.
Yeah, by the way, the Rams have made 2 first-round picks in the last 10 drafts, Jared Verse and Ty Simpson. What a day of news. Adam, fill us in on the top stories. Let's start with the...
But now, when you're talking about Marion front with coverage, a guy who can close a game out by himself with improved secondary play and an offense that showed you they can score on anybody, this is about as exciting as it gets. And for the Rams, they have to be sitting there thinking, we're on our way now. We're on our way.
They're on their way to a Super Bowl in Los Angeles. Last time they won the Super Bowl in Los Angeles, a lot of parallels there. Adam, you said something interesting. 2 things. One, this trade seems like it was expensive, but obviously the Rams feel like it was worth it. You said that the Rams being the Rams, they weren't going to give up. What does that mean, the Rams being the Rams, when it came to this deal?
Well, we've heard their motto about screwing picks, draft picks, not caring about them, and they're going to send picks here to the Cleveland Browns. And they're not worried about those picks because, in part, they drafted their quarterback in this past draft. So they have Ty Simpson in their fold, on their roster. They don't have to go worry about pursuing a quarterback in 2027. And if we go back and look at everything the Rams have done through time, in 2021, the last time the Super Bowl was being played in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, the Rams went out and traded that year, that offseason, for Matthew Stafford. Now, the Super Bowl is back in L.A. again, 5 years later, and the Los Angeles Rams, not worrying about picks, decide to go ahead and trade for the best defensive player in football, arguably maybe the best player in football. And so they are viewing the short term as critical. They know the Super Bowl is being played in their home stadium. They're not worried about the picks that they have to give up in the future. They're not worried about the future. They get a player who becomes their most dominant defender since Aaron Donald, a worthy successor, a future Hall of Fame player. And if you go back and look last year, Myles Garrett set the single-season sack record with 23 sacks on a team that didn't win many games, that wasn't playing with the lead. And now he goes to Los Angeles to be put into what should be a better defensive situation. The sacks last year, 20 of the 23 sacks came from a 4-man rush. The type of play and the types of numbers that he could put up this year in LA when he's surrounded by talent with multiple looks, they should be Big again, very big again.
And Lewis, I mean, there is the other side of this. You hear Jared Verse. I mean, he's a hell of a young football player now. He goes up to Cleveland from Ohio and Florida State. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, if we're being fair, if they're in a rebuild mode, we know the Rams are like win now with the veteran quarterback. They've got everything in place. But on the other side of this, there is another player in Jared Verse who made the Browns, in terms of future, a bit better today with the draft pick attached.
Yeah, and like I said in the beginning, Matt, I mean, Jared Verse is no slouch now. I mean, this dude's a stud now. And look, what the Browns have now is more draft capital to continue to feel as though, hey, look, at least we've got a shot at it. At least we've got more, swings at it to try and get this thing right. But that's what the Browns have kind of like consistently been in that kind of mode. They've always been in the mode of, well, if we have this number of picks, we can move around and get a quarterback, we can move around and get a pass rusher, we can get more wide receivers. Hope, hope, hope. Hope, hope, hope. Let's look forward to next year. The Rams are like, look, man, we're trying to win this thing now. We were right there on the cusp a year ago, and we couldn't stop the Seattle Seahawks offensive passing game. We couldn't stop JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. We couldn't get Sam Darnold on the ground. We need a closer. Remember this, too. The last time the Rams won the Super Bowl, do you remember the play that they basically won the game on, and who was the guy who affected the passer on that play? It was Aaron Donald. Yep. It was Aaron Donald getting pass rush on Joe Burrow that had he not gotten that pass rush, maybe the Bengals win that football game. You think Sean McVay doesn't know that? You think Les Snead doesn't remember that? Of course they do. Myles Garrett can have the same kind of effect on a football team. And see, this is, and for all the people who thought, you know what, the Rams screwed this offseason up by not drafting, a wide receiver for Matthew Stafford, and they just didn't know what they're doing. They're kind of like they're screwing themselves over here. No, what they did was they have now upgraded their football team measurably in the area that they needed to, and as Adam pointed out, and they took care of the future with Ty Simpson in their mind. There may be people who feel as though Ty Simpson isn't a franchise quarterback, but they sure do. And like I told you back in January, they always felt this way about him going back to then. That's why Ty came out, because he knew there's a team that looked at him as a future franchise quarterback. If you ask me, look, Les Snead right now and Sean McVay have to be sitting there giggling, because this offseason, to me, has unfolded just like they wanted it to. And if you're a Rams fan, you can't wait until September rolls around, or rather, September, when they go down to Australia and play against San Francisco. You want to see what this team looks like.
And they had to watch Seattle within their own division win the Super Bowl, and that's not going to sit pretty with them. And, Jay, to think about it, we were all worried about today for tomorrow for another blockbuster trade that may or may not go down.
Yeah, it's June 1st, Matt. Do you know Eagles wideout has long been rumored to be on the move to potentially the New England Patriots after 4 years under Super Bowl title in Philly? A three-time All-Pro, Brown is coming off his fourth straight 1,000-yard season. Now, if Brown had been traded before today, Philly would have carried a $43 million dead cap hit in 2026, while adding roughly $20 million to their active cap. Dealing him after today, the dead cap hit drops to just $16.4 million in 2026, with the remaining $27.1 million pushing to 2027, and would actually save them $7 million on the active cap this season. Let's bring back Adam and Lewis. Adam, where do things stand with A.J. Brown potentially changing teams now that we've hit June?
Jay, I'm still expecting that trade to go down here in the next 24 hours with A.J. Brown being sent to the New England Patriots. It's just a question of the two sides finalizing compensation and making sure that that trade is in place. I do think that once they get back on the phone today, and they may already have, that it will include a 2028 first-round draft pick going to Philadelphia in exchange for A.J. Brown. We'll see if these two sides can get that trade finalized, worked out. Again, I would expect that to be the case. The Eagles have been preparing to move on and off of A.J. Brown. The Patriots are ready to make a move to acquire him, and we'll just see when the two sides officially come together and what that compensation turns out to be in the end.
All right, Lewis, what are your expectations for this Eagles offense with Devontae Smith likely assuming wide receiver one duties?
Look, when you look at Devontae, Jay, this is a dude who's a three-position player. He's a different body type. He gives it to you in a different package. But Devontae Smith, by all accounts, is a true fire, bona fide number one. And he's been one, before, if you want to go back to his time at Alabama. This is a guy who's used to carrying the load. And so I think he will be able to pick up the slack and be able to ascend into the guy who every team is gunning to try and stop when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles offense. Mekhi Lemon, the first-round pick out of USC, look, he's going to have to really mature in the sense of being an NFL player right out of the gate and be, again, that three-position player just like he was at USC. He wasn't just a slot guy. He's a guy who can play the X, the Z, play in the slot, tough as hell over the middle, tons of contested catches, lots of yardage after contact, after the catch. He's going to be another guy who has to step up. Dontavian Wicks, a bigger body on the outside, as you see on your screen there on the far right. Hollywood Brown, we know, the speedster who spent some time in Kansas City, spent some time in Baltimore. The name that we don't have on that list that really is going to be the big body between the numbers, down the seam guy, is rookie tight end Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt, who I got to see play this year a couple times, down there in Nashville. He's the guy who may be the wild card more so than anyone, because of his athletic ability, the mismatch that he presents in terms of his size and ridiculous leaping ability. And then now all of this has to be kind of put in a pot and stirred up and cooked into a beautiful meal by Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts. That's really, to me, there's just so many moving parts, but Philadelphia has plenty of firepower to withstand the loss of someone as super talented as A.J. Brown.
Sounds like a nice meal you're making. It's Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. That news coming from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero and ESPN's Adam Schefter. In return, the Browns will get two-time Pro Bowl pass rusher Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, and more draft compensation. We are bringing super teams to the turf. When these four suit up together, it'll be the first time the reigning NFL MVP and the reigning Defensive Player of the Year will be on the same team in the same season. Woo. All right, let's bring in our national NFL reporter, Lindsay Theory. Lindsay, this trade just came out of nowhere. What can you share about the surprise nature of this deal?
Well, Jay, the first thing I had to do was double check that it was an Adam Schefter hoax account tweeting it. That's how surprising it was on a Monday morning here in Los Angeles. But then you stop for 1 minute and you kind of evaluate it. And this is just what the Rams are known to do. This is what they've historically done. You go back, they traded for Jalen Ramsey. They've traded, obviously, Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. They went out and got Von Miller. All of these moves at the time, all blockbuster deals, all to set this franchise on the trajectory that it's been, which is year in and year out contenders for an NFC championship, year in and year out contenders for a Super Bowl. So when you look at it really from a historical perspective under Les Snead and Sean McVay, surprising that it happened today, but knowing them and knowing their continuous hunt to always improve their roster and do it by really any means necessary, this is really no surprise at all.
All right, you covered the Rams for several seasons. Why did L.A. make this particular move?
Their offense last season was ready to go to the Super Bowl. It was their defense, and I heard Louis Riddick talking about it a little bit earlier. It was their defense that needed the most help. And we saw them address that ahead of the trade by going and getting Trent McDuffie, the all-pro cornerback from the Chiefs, and now they get Myles Garrett. So between Garrett and McDuffie, those are two guys that obviously immediately improve that unit and immediately make them Super Bowl contenders. This is a team that very much wants to get back to the Super Bowl. It is here in LA. They don't know how much longer Matthew Stafford will be their quarterback. Of course, they just signed him to an extension, but this is a team that is always in win now. And right now, that is exactly the move they want to make to get back to the Super Bowl here in LA.
All right, Lindsay Theory, thank you much. Let's go back over to Matt.
News today in the NFL, a league-altering move. The Browns trading two-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett to the Rams for two-time Pro Bowl pass rusher Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, two other picks. We'll get to those in a minute. Garrett's 23 sacks last season set the single-season record. And now he joins a Rams team that finished one game short of the Super Bowl. The last time the Rams made a blockbuster trade, they also got another number one overall pick in Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff. Look at the compensation. The third-round pick, 2022, 2023 first-round picks, that netted them a Super Bowl. The compensation is now final in this trade. They get Jared Verse, the first-round pick in 2027, a 2028 second-round pick, 2029 third-round pick. What we don't know yet, will this net them another Super Bowl like the Matthew Stafford trade did? Joining me now, senior NFL writer Jeremy Fowler, and Louis Riddick is back with us to
They're 4 deep at tight end, 2 stud running backs, and a Hall of Fame quarterback with their quarterback of the future. What is there not to like about this football team right now going into the 26th season? Especially when you're talking about, let's just say 1 through 30. Their number 1 player through their top 30 players. Sure. You can match them up against any team in the NFL. They're right there, man. They may be playing on their home field again for a chance to win another Super Bowl.
You know what I love about this? Two teams and fans around the league are like, why isn't my franchise like this? Why aren't they going all in on players like this? But the Rams, they stand alone in that one. Eagles make a lot of championship moves as well. But now we got to talk about the finances. What does the Garrett move do to contracts already in-house?
Well, the Rams have several young players on rookie contracts that it looks like they're not going to pay. They're opting for the big swings. Trent McDuffie, the corner, a couple months ago, and now Myles Garrett. Those are big contracts. Re-signed Matthew Stafford. But they got 4 guys in-house. Puka Nacua, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Steve Avila, the center guard. All guys that are eligible for extensions and are going into 2027 free agency. Based on my early indications, the Rams are not planning to pay those guys right now. Now, I expect Puka Nacua to be part of the long-term plans, but considering what's happened this offseason, they want to see him get his life right and see where they are. So perhaps they could revisit that one, but not a lot of substantial discussions for some star players that are coming up that could be free agents in March. So instead of F them picks, it seems like we're going to don't pay them picks.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, we should do draft grades now, because now the draft grade with the Rams, with all the moves that they made, look a little bit better. And you look at the compensation that's since been updated in terms of what the Rams are giving up to get Myles Garrett. And what Jared Verse, look, that's a young team in Cleveland who by themselves had a great draft this last spring, so they're going to be a team of the future. But for the right here and the right now, Lewis, how much of this do you believe was a response to watching the Seahawks beat them in the championship game, come out of their division, and win the Super Bowl?
Look, I think, that started, back in January, when they were sitting there going, look, what is the number one thing we need to do? We need to upgrade corners. So, I mean, they've been responding to that, Matt, all off season. To really come up with Myles Garrett, though, in the end, again, I think there's no question. Look, when you have success in the past and you have a certain formula that kind of got you there, you're going to go back to that. You're going to go back to, like, okay, what was it that we were missing? And what was it that kept us from getting to the mountaintop and planting that flag? It was defensive play. It was glaring that it was cornerback play. But as I just mentioned a minute ago, the last time they had a guy who could change the entire calculus for an opposing offense on the defensive line, they won a Super Bowl, and that was with Aaron. Myles is in that category, different position, different body type. But he's the same. It's the same kind of impact. So that's it makes perfect sense. I get it, and that's not to disrespect Jared Verse, but you know what the Rams are doing? The Rams are doing what every team should do. We're trying to win now and with an eye on the future. Not, well, we just got to plan for the future. We always got to be looking for the future. No, they're trying to win right now, because that's what every owner wants, and they're gonna win right now.
And Matt Stafford got that extension, keeping him around a little bit but the right here, the right now, looks very good for the Rams. Super Bowl 258 days. Oh, by the way, you can watch that on ABC and ESPN. Fowler, Lewis, you guys will be busy all day. Thanks, fellas. Browns are trading 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett to the Rams for 2-time Pro Bowl pass rusher Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, and 2 other picks. Garrett's 23 sacks last year set the single-season record, and he now joins a Rams team that finished 1 game short of the Super Bowl. Will that matter this time around when you take a look at what it's done to the odds movement since the Garrett trade? Before, when you were having your cup of coffee and Joe Fortenbaugh was eating his Lucky Charms, it was plus 800. Since that trade, at lunchtime when he was eating his